Today's episode is brought to you by DAX Copilot from Microsoft. DAX Copilot is an AI assistant that helps automate clinical documentation and workflow to let you be more efficient and reduce all the administrative burden that comes with patient care. To learn more about how DAX Copilot can help improve healthcare experiences for both you and your patients, visit aka.ms/knock-knock-hi. Again, that's aka.ms/knock-knock-hi.
Knock, knock, hi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a jet-lagged edition of Knock Knock I. I'm your host, Dr. Glockenflecken. I really shouldn't say jet-lagged. That implies like moving across a huge number of time zones. More just like tired. I learned something about myself. I ran... I'm a private practice ophthalmologist, as you all know. Research is not my forte, but I did a little experiment. I did. I wanted to see how well I could function after a red-eye flight. So here's why. Because in general, I don't like traveling to the East Coast. I wouldn't say East Coast. Eastern time zone. That is by far, all due respect to all of you listening who live in the Eastern time zone. Your time zone sucks. It is the worst. It's the worst time zone. Honestly, give me one good thing about the Eastern time zone. I would love to hear it. All your favorite TV shows, now everything's streaming, so that ages me saying that. Sporting events all come on later. Just everything media-wise comes up later. It's in traveling to that time zone. I think I just gave you just one example, but honestly, that's a big one. Especially when I like football, and you have to wait so late, and you're up so late watching like Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. I don't like it anyway. But the even worse part about it is traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. It takes a whole day. I have to take an entire day off from work just to travel to give a talk in New York or Philadelphia or whatever. And it's hard because I can only take off so many days. Occasionally I do have to see patients in clinic. I do try to practice ophthalmology from time to time. And so yesterday, I took a trip. I took a red eye. The red eye left Monday night. So I worked Monday all day. And I left at 11 p.m. from Portland. And I arrived in Detroit, 5 hours later, 6 a.m. And then I spoke at a symposium. So I was up most of the day, and I don't sleep on planes. And the experiment was, can I do this? That's I've always been nervous to do it. I've wanted to do it because I feel like it's a wasted day because I'm just traveling. And so I was thinking, if I can fly on a red eye and be like funny enough on no sleep or very little sleep, then I can do this. And turns out I can. So Kristen and I, we both went. Kristen, though, she does not have an ophthalmology clinic to do. And so she has a much more flexible schedule than me. So she went early. She was like, forget that. No way in hell I'm flying with you on a red eye. She came earlier, and we spoke together at the Mary Tyler Moore Vision Initiative Symposium. This is a new thing that we are ambassadors to. It's a nonprofit research outreach-based initiative for patients with diabetic retinopathy who have vision loss from diabetic retinopathy. And it's a really cool organization. The whole thing was founded by Mary Tyler Moore, who died a number of years ago. Her husband, Robert Levine, Dr. Robert Levine, he's a physician, started this because Mary Tyler Moore had diabetes, and she's in particular, she had vision loss related to diabetic retinopathy. And one of the things that she wanted was to try to end this problem, end this disease, at least end the vision disability that comes with severe diabetic retinopathy. And so he's done over the years, put all this work together to bring in the latest research. They have a partnership with the Kellogg Department of Ophthalmology at University of Michigan. So all these amazing researchers that are doing things in AI and pharmaceuticals and devices and things to try to improve the diagnosis and treatment of diabetic retinopathy, to make it just less of a terrible disease that causes blindness. Just trying to move the field forward, because there's really there's been some good things that have come over the last few decades, but not as much as you would think for such a common disease. I mean, we're talking, millions and millions of people have vision loss because of diabetes. And so we just wanted to be a part of it. And so Kristen and I are ambassadors. Our job is to get the word out, because it's so interesting. It was intimidating, honestly, being at a place like this with so many people who are talking about very high level things, and they're like at the forefront of their field, world renowned researchers, physician scientists. And then I get up on stage and I'm like, I make TikToks. That's what I do. And Kristen here, she she runs the TikTok making business, and honestly does a lot of the work anyway, of just actually making this into a thing. And so anyway, we were there. We told our story and just talked about social media advocacy and how we can help get the word out, because researchers are good at research, maybe not so good at trying to get some of these amazing things they're doing out to the public in a way that's accessible and that people can understand. So we talked about that. It was great experience. Even though I was doing it after a red eye, I still was able to tell funny jokes. I felt like my energy was pretty good. Maybe not what it usually is. It's pretty good. And then I got home and crashed, and then worked today. And I'll tell you, the day after, like 2 days after the red eye, that's when it hits you. Like I flew all night and then was up the next day. I was doing okay. And then the next day after that, that's when it's like, whoa, that was a mistake what I just did. So anyway, thanks Eastern time zone for making me do this. It's your fault. It's your fault. The worst time zone by far. I honestly think Central is actually, I think Mountain's probably the best, and then Central, then Pacific, then Eastern. Yeah, those are the final rankings, and no one can argue with me. Okay, what else? Well, I guess since I brought up diabetic retinopathy, I guess I just talk a little bit more about that. I did have you guys should look back. I did an episode about diabetic retinopathy. And, one question this might bring up for people is what is the cause of the vision loss? So you talk about blindness from diabetic retinopathy. What does that look like? And usually what that means, because diabetes is a disease that affects the small blood vessels. You basically get destruction of blood vessels in your body. It's a vascular disease. So in your heart, in your kidneys, a lot of organs throughout your body, your feet, your hands, you start losing some of those little capillaries that bring blood flow, and then so it causes damage to your organs. Well, the eyes are no different. The eyes are special with diabetes though, because we can actually visualize. It's the easiest way to visualize the actual damage. I can look at someone's retina with diabetic retinopathy and I see the capillaries. We see the small little arterioles that start developing little microaneurysms that start swelling and bleeding and leaking out into the retina. We can get a cross-sectional image of the macula that shows all the 7 or 8, or I forget how many layers there are in your retina, and we can see the swelling, the fluid leaking from those capillaries and causing separation between the layers of the retina, resulting in vision loss for the patient. It's remarkable, some of the things we can do. And it's just getting better with things like this Mary Tyler Moore Vision Initiative. And so, as the diabetic retinopathy gets worse, the blood vessels become, more tenuous and leaking more, and there's more destruction there. And then when you're not having adequate blood flow to the retina, the body's like, oh shit, we got to get more blood flow. How are we going to do this? Let's make new blood vessels. Here's this chemical, vascular endothelial growth factor. We know this will make blood vessels. Let's make a bunch of blood vessels as quickly as possible. Well, the body does it, and it's really good at it. That VEGF is powerful. But those blood vessels, they're not good. It's like trying to build a house like in a day. Like, unless you're Amish, it's not going to work out too well. And so it's the blood vessels that the eye makes are wispy and prone to leaking and prone to bleeding. So we heard stories at the symposium from patients about what it's like to like have a bleed. You're going about your business, you're at work, or you're on vacation, and all of a sudden you lose vision. And sure enough, you have a bleed in the eye. One of those blood vessels broke open, eye filled with blood. It can take months for that to recover, for the eye to clear that blood out. Eventually it does. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to have surgery, a vitrectomy, to remove that blood. And then eventually, if those blood vessels, if it gets bad enough, you get all these abnormal blood vessels, you start to get scarring. And that can result in retinal detachments. And now we're talking end-stage diabetic retinopathy. And we're trying to avoid that. All right? Diabetes, that's a disease that's not going away. All right? So at least not now, until maybe we have gene therapy or something down the road that can totally just get rid of diabetes. But if we're going to have diabetes as a disease, then we need to do everything we can and work toward preventing the devastating visual complications that can occur with diabetic retinopathy. And that includes getting people diagnosed sooner, getting education to patients so they know it's the saddest thing are the patients who are in their 20s and 30s and have severe vision loss. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. Having access to medical care, having access to insulin. And this is a multifactorial thing. And so on the ophthalmology side, on the diagnostics, the treatment side, we're working. Try to figure out, doing what we can. And I was just like, I left the Mary Tyler Moore Symposium, I just energized to try to defeat diabetic retinopathy. All right. So anyway, I'm just real excited to be a part of it. Not excited for future visits to the East Coast, but that's okay. I can get over that for a good cause. All right, let's take a break. Kristen.
What?
We got to talk about disability insurance.
Why's that?
Because I don't have it.
I know.
I wish I did.
I wish you did too.
We should have gotten it before I had testicular cancer and testicular cancer again and a cardiac arrest.
Yes, we thought we had time, but it turned out we did not.
Well, let me tell you about Pearson Ravitz.
Tell me.
This is a company founded by a physician, Dr. Stephanie Pearson, an OBGYN who had an injury, was unable to work, and is now an advocate for physicians and wants to help others avoid similar mistakes. Pearson Ravitz has decades of experience, takes its time to get to know you, your medical history, and what you need. It's not just a form you fill out on the website.
Yeah.
It's a personal connection they make, and they've helped more than 6,000 physicians get disability insurance.
I wonder if they can help you.
Maybe. To find out more and get a free one-to-one consultation, go to www.pearsonravitz.com/knock-knock. Again, that's Pearson Ravitz, PearsonRavitz.com/knock-knock to get more information and protect your greatest investment, you. By the way, Kristen is not happy with my conclusion that it's okay. I can very easily take a red eye across the country and still do stuff the next day, because she made a good point. She told me, you have to sleep eventually. I do forget that. Like, sure, I'm doing a red eye. I can function the next day. Eventually, I do have to sleep, and I've got to catch up on that sleep. But I'm not a future-oriented thinker. That's not how I operate. I'm day to day. That's it, which is just how I go about things. Okay, so I went through let's do some YouTube comments. We got some good ones. So I just recently, this is of the most recently posted video, which is, does your eye color make you prone to certain diseases? We talked about a number of things on that episode. One of them was pigmentary glaucoma. That was the main topic. And so this is, by the way, all these videos, the episodes are up on our YouTube channel at Glaucomfleckens. Check it out. We love seeing those comments. If you want me to read your comments, some people are like, oh, I'm so glad you read the comments. I love reading the comments. I love reading what you guys are writing to me, and you're giving me great suggestions, great topics to cover. All right, so I'm going to go through a few of these comments. This made me laugh. So, pigmentary glaucoma, again, just two sentences. When you have brown eyes and sometimes you can release pigment, you have a lot of pigment in your iris, you release pigment that clogs up the drainage system inside the eye, the trabecular meshwork, and can cause pressure spikes. And these typically happen in the classic demographic is young adult males who are slightly myopic. And I got a comment from @Rowan Jacobs who says, as a brown-eyed myopic man in my 30s, this was a harrowing listen. That made me laugh. Thank you. But don't be nervous, Rowan, and anybody else who falls into that group. All right, it's still a very rare. But if you do, especially after vigorous activity, if you notice eye pain, you might want to get it checked out. Go to your eye doctor. Okay. Here's a comment from @Amanda B. Evan 6331. Said, hello, I am curious about issues that arise from having astigmatism in everyday life, and if it is true that there is really nothing to do about it. That's totally false. There's lots of things to do about astigmatism, but the comment keeps going. It says, more specifically, as our daylight dwindles and night driving becomes necessary, the glare and flare that occurs around every source of light becomes more of an issue. With trends now of headlights switching to LEDs and more of the bright blue, not warm yellow, I find those flares are larger and make driving much more difficult. Thank goodness for fog lines to help me stay on course when a large truck or SUV passes me going in the other direction. I am so glad you brought this up because most of my patients do as well. So there's a lot to dive into with this comment. Let's talk about astigmatism for a second. So the first thing to know is that almost pretty much everybody has some degree of astigmatism. All right, astigmatism just describes the shape of your cornea. All right, if you have astigmatism, your cornea, it's shaped a little bit more like a football, like an American football, as opposed to like a basketball. Nobody's cornea is perfectly spherical. Nobody's cornea. That would be extremely rare. The question is, how much astigmatism do you have? If it reaches a certain threshold of astigmatism, you start to have symptoms. It starts to be visually significant. And what Amanda's talking about here is these flares of light around sources of light. These flares around sources of light. So I use, at night in the winter, I use Christmas lights as an example for people. Pinpoint light. And if you have a lot of astigmatism, it'll look like you have these like a trail, like a comet tail of light coming off in different directions, depending on what kind of astigmatism you have. So it's like all these lights are stretched out. They look very unusual. And it can be kind of pretty, but probably not when you're trying to actually drive or do, I've had people tell me that they love taking their glasses off and just looking at Christmas lights. Because you get all this sparkles and the flares, and it's very colorful, lots of light. But again, if you're trying to function, it's not a great thing. And so what can you do about astigmatism? Well, obviously glasses and contacts. That's like the basic thing. And that's great for regular astigmatism. All right, that's your just normal average amount of astigmatism. But a lot of people have irregular astigmatism. Things like keratoconus, pellucid marginal degeneration, other corneal ectasias where you have a cornea disease. Astigmatism is not a disease. Right? It's just a normal finding, kind of like myopia. It's like myopia, astigmatism. These are things we can correct with glasses. But a pathologic state for the cornea would be things like keratoconus, where you have a degeneration or ectasia of the cornea. Also, severe dry eye can induce a lot of astigmatism. So for these things, you treat the underlying disease. For keratoconus, and we had an episode on that a while back as well, we have this thing called corneal collagen cross-linking, where what you do is you take the top off of the cornea, the epithelium, you rub off all the epithelial cells, and then you bathe the cornea in these riboflavin eye drops. Riboflavin 6-phosphate. You just bathe it, like the cornea just gets full, engorged. It's corneal engorgement with riboflavin. And then we shine ultraviolet light on the cornea, and what it does is it stiffens up the cornea. Well, you do that in people with rapidly progressing keratoconus, so you don't want it to keep progressing, and so you do this treatment, and it stiffens up the cornea, and so it won't progress as much. Because keratoconus is like a weakening of the cornea. So yeah, there's treatment. There's lots of things we can do for and then once you have cataract surgery, well, what you can do then is you take the lens out, and the artificial lens we put in there, that has astigmatism correction in it if you want it to be. There's special lenses that do that. It's basically like taking your astigmatism correcting glasses, taking that lens and just shrinking it down, changing the shape a little bit, and sticking it inside the eye so it's there permanently. So lots of things to do about astigmatism. But making sure you know it's regular, normal kind of astigmatism, or if it's not, how to treat it. But I really appreciate you bringing up, Amanda, the second part of your comment about the headlights. This is like easily top 3 complaints that I hear from patients all the time. What is going on with the headlights? What is happening? They're getting worse. And so I thought at first, when I first started practicing ophthalmology, I was like, okay, the headlight thing, it's a cataract symptom. People start having problems with headlights, and we ask about it, honestly. We ask about the headlights. Do you have issues with glare, with oncoming traffic? And then people just go, oh, doc, I hate those blue headlights. I hate them. And so this is a big thing with cataracts, and cataract surgery typically helps that. And at the beginning of my career, I was like, okay, this is just a cataract thing. Like, this is just what happens as you get older. But now, over the past few years, and I don't have any cataract. Most people under the age of 50 don't have cataract. And I'm getting people of all ages starting to complain about the headlights. They're too bright. And I think it's no longer, it's now getting to the point where it's not just cataracts. It's just the normal human eye is not willing or able to tolerate the intensity of light coming from cars. It's a thing. And so I did some research to see if there's any regulation in it. And there is a level where it's like it's not street legal. It's not like against the law, but would you be able to get a registration? Maybe not. Inspection? Do they check headlight intensity? I don't know, but there are guidelines. That's mostly what I was finding is guidelines. And the guidelines say you need to have the number of lumens from your light less than 3,000. So just to give you a frame of reference, a lumen is a measure of the intensity of light, I believe. The physics people, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But your average halogen light bulb that fills a room is like 1,000 lumens. And so it seems reasonable, like 3,000. Yeah, you want to have the light on your headlight be brighter than what you have in your room, sure. So 3,000. That's the number I kept being thrown out there. Like, okay, like the general like transportation association, whatever guidelines, like no brighter than 3,000. Well, now a lot of cars don't have halogen type lights. They have LED lights. And these LED lights, you can find them for like 12,000 lumens. And so they routinely are like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. 12,000 lumens. It's like staring at the surface of the sun. And the thing is, the reason this is apparently a much worse problem in the U.S. compared to European countries or other countries around the world, because we are way behind with regulating this. Now, so in European countries, they have these adaptive headlights. This is like a huge deal. Adaptive headlights that what they can do, let me pull it up here. Yeah, they're like smart headlights. And what they can do is they have sensors that will automatically change the shape, brightness, and direction of the light on your car, on your headlight, to both help with making sure you maintain the driver's visibility, but also not blinding other cars coming the opposite direction. And this is becoming very, very common, almost standard for European vehicles. It's taking time, but it's happening. But the U.S. we're because we're dragging our feet, because I don't know if you've been able to tell. Like, you can't force anybody to do anything in this country. It's not like there could be a mandate. Let's have adaptive driving beam headlights on our cars, on all of our cars, so we don't blind our neighbors. It's not that easy. Not that easy. So I don't know. I don't think it's a problem that's going to end. Like it really does. It's very interesting. Like on my car, granted, I haven't bought a car in 7 years, but the cars are just like massive computers. It's like driving a spaceship. We have a minivan. It's high tech minivan. But as high tech as these things like really are, the function of our headlights, it's just like click and then click for brighter and then click for brightest. Like that's all it does. You would think that with all the technology we have, like we'd have something better. Well, that does exist, just mostly not in this country. All that to say, sorry, Amanda. I sympathize with you about the lights. So do like almost every single one of my patients, and I don't think we're very good at this country of making that better. That would be a good platform for me to run on for president. I'm going to have a platform of getting rid of the headlights, getting rid of LED headlights, getting rid of Visine, outlawing the mandatory jail sentence if you sleep in your contacts. What else? What else is on my agenda? Visine. You can't ever say anything bad about somebody's glasses unless you're me. I don't know. I'll think. No, eyeball tattoos. You can't do that. Common sense things. All right, this is my platform. Okay, one more break. All right, so I have, let's see, one other good question that I got was from @StevenJust01. Said, I wonder if there's any long-term complications of nystagmus. I was born with it, so I don't notice the motion, but I'm wondering if there's any long-term things to watch out for. I just imagine comparing the lens of my eye to a building in an earthquake that never ends. Will the fibers holding it in place snap from stress fatigue? I love this comment. There's so much to unpack here. So first of all, so it's basically a question, is there any long-term complications of nystagmus? So let me just remind you all what nystagmus is. Nystagmus is an abnormal movement of the eye. There's a lot of different reasons that someone can have nystagmus. It can be congenital, it can be acquired. Congenital nystagmus doesn't necessarily portend some horrible disease, vision. You can have this latent what we call latent nystagmus, which is a normal kind of movement of the eye, much more common when you cover one eye and you just have a single eye. So the eye will kind of flick quickly and then slowly move, and then flick and then slowly move back, flick, slowly move back. And it can be very rapid. It can be very slow. It's always, I'd say nystagmus is always something that should be evaluated, even if it's congenital and there's no problem there. It should always be evaluated because you want to make sure that it's not something like a brain tumor or a stroke or something else, things that can cause a nystagmus from developing. So more acquired causes of nystagmus. Things like aniridia, or basically diseases that can cause bilateral severe vision loss at a very early age. You end up with like a congenital type nystagmus. So in patients with aniridia, sometimes they have hypoplasia of their macula. So their retina doesn't develop normally. You don't have that foveal dip. And so the macula doesn't develop, vision doesn't develop normally. They're like 2200, 2400. They can have some nystagmus. It's kind of like a way for the eyes. They're kind of like searching. Eyes are kind of searching a little bit. And so for people like Stephen here, who said he was born with it, so I don't notice the motion. So what is he talking about? You would think that someone with nystagmus, no matter who you are, the eyes are constantly moving. Like your world is going to be constantly moving. You're going to see something. But not always. Not always. In fact, most of the time people don't. That's a symptom called oscillopsia. Oscillopsia is you have an abnormal eye movement that results in perception that the world is spinning or moving or shaking. It's symptomatic. So a lot of times we'll see that in people with an acquired version of nystagmus. There's some pathologic process going on. The eyes are moving funny, and they're noticing it. Someone with latent nystagmus or congenital nystagmus, they're not going to have that sensation. Their brain has just learned to accommodate that abnormal movement, so they're not constantly seeing that the world is moving. And then he questions if there's any long-term things to watch out for. So this is a really good question, and actually one that I think I had in residency as well. It's like, this eye is constantly moving. Could there be damage inside the eye from that? And what he's asking about are the fibers that holding the lens in place. So if you recall from our many anatomy discussions that we've had over the months, the lens inside the eye is suspended like a suspension bridge. It's suspended by these little strings that are called zonules. They go all around the equator of the lens, holding that lens in place. Well, there are certain diseases where those zonule fibers can be damaged, obviously in any trauma, or they could just be, you can lose some of them through the disease process. And so the concern that, nystagmus can just eventually cause those things to break down, that doesn't happen. Just think about how many eye movements you have in a day. Thousands. We call them saccades. So if you look from like one finger to the other, you're generating, those are voluntary saccades. All right. Whenever you try to scan across the room, your eyes, unless you're following something that's moving, your eyes it's not a smooth pursuit. If I'm trying to scan across, I have tiny movements all the way across. Those are little saccades. And so you have saccades with nystagmus as well. They're just very tiny. And so regardless of whether or not you have nystagmus, we're constantly moving our eyes all around. And it doesn't cause damage to the eye. That's what the eye's for. That's what it's supposed to be doing. So don't worry about that. The only way to have damage from those zonules holding the lens in place is from some other disease or trauma or something. But I do appreciate the question. That's a really good one. I don't think I saw any other questions that we can get to today. I mentioned how much I appreciated the eyeball statue in Dallas as the place of pilgrimage for all ophthalmologists. They have this 30-foot tall eyeball. And then somebody told me that there are eyeball sculptures on the campus of Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts. I have been there. I've been to Williams College. I played ultimate frisbee for the Dartmouth team, and we went to Williams. They kicked our ass. They were really good that year. But yes, I've been to Williams. It was a really pretty place. That was at Sarah G. Waz 2494. Thank you for that comment. I guess we'll end it there. I think that's enough eyeball stuff for today. All right. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know if you have any ideas or if you have a disease you want me to talk about, or a family member has some kind of eye problem, or just a burning question, maybe about eyeball burning. I don't know, whatever you want to talk about. Leave a comment. You don't have to actually watch. If you like to just listen to me and not watch me talk, because maybe you're doing chores, you just want to have me in your ear. That's a great idea. Just come back later to the YouTube video. Leave a comment. That's where I'm going to address anything you guys talk about or want me to talk about. Obviously, any corrections, anything I got wrong, let me know. I'm not perfect, and I'm a little bit sleep deprived right now, so it wouldn't shock me. But that's it. Thank you all for listening. I'm your host, Will Flannery, also known as Dr. Glockenflecken. Thanks to our executive producers, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brick. Editor, engineers, Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. Knock Knock Hi is a human content production. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Knock, knock, goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Help you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.